away with the filibuster to codify Roe?
I'm not prepared to make those judgments now.
All right, President Biden making a few remarks on this news, the Roe v. Wade draft leak being announced to everyone in that Politico story. This is the president heading to Alabama today. He also released a statement earlier before Justice Roberts confirmed the report's authenticity. It says in part, "I believe that a woman's right to choose is fundamental. Roe has been the law of the land for almost 50 years, and basic fairness and the stability of our law demand that it not be overturned." Let's welcome in our panel now to talk about this. Constitutional law attorney and Newsmax contributor Jenna Ellis is here. She's also a former senior advisor and counsel to President Trump. Also with us, former Nevada State GOP chairwoman and Republican strategist Amy Tarkanian. Ladies, great to have you with us, and we'll talk about the legal and political fallout from this. But Jenna, first to you. I mean, if you read Alito's decision, it's not really about abortion here. If you read it closely, it focuses on the 14th Amendment and the Due Process Clause, which, based on medical advancements since 1972, seems to now be at odds with not only the Roe decision, but also the Casey decision as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And this draft, of course, reflects what a lot of conservatives anticipated based on the oral arguments that a lot of us listened to. And if this draft does, in fact, reflect the actual opinion that ultimately is handed down, this won't be a surprise to a lot of us that listened to those oral arguments. And so what's really damaging about a first draft leak is that this is now probably a month or two, or at least 6 weeks in advance of the final opinion being rendered. And so what this leak, really the intent of it, I believe, is that it's a pressure for Congress to act to effectively render the decision moot if Congress steps in to try to codify Roe versus Wade, which, of course, even though Bernie Sanders and so many of the other Democrats are saying that, that's absolutely going against the U.S. Constitution. There is no power that is given to Congress on a federal level to do anything related to abortion, and that's what this opinion reflects. And so the reason that everyone is panicking about the leaks and saying this is so unprecedented is not just reflected in Justice Roberts' comments, which I think were absolutely wise of him to push out, but because this is mounting a pressure campaign on Congress to do something before the actual opinion takes effect.
Yeah, and it's also amazing to see how some people are treating this leaker like he or she is a hero. I mean, this is really, this has happened before, but to this degree, also taking the time to talk about other left-wing priorities like student loan debt cancellation and climate change. Okay, non sequiturs there, but AOC is going to be AOC. Bernie Sanders says it's time to codify Roe v. Wade as the rule of law across the land. And you just heard Jenna say that's not really possible because of the congressional restraints, the checks on power there. Also the fact they don't even have 51 votes to do so. And then Congresswoman Ilhan Omar calling to expand the court. I thought it was interesting last night, Amy, that the hashtag do something was trending. Of course, the Constitution prohibits what some of these leftists want to do.
Right. And I find it ironic and laughable that you would hear Democrats shouting the rule of law. We need to have the rule of law when you just mentioned that somebody leaked. And clearly, I would think that that's unethical, if not unlawful. And I do agree that there should be an investigation into who did the leaking of this document. And also, I happened to catch Chuck Schumer when he addressed the situation this morning. And the first words that came out of his mouth were that he was instilling fear that our children would have less rights if this were to pass. Newsflash, you're killing children. So of course they would have less rights because they don't even have the opportunity to have their first breath if this continues forward. Now, this whole situation is also being led with disinformation, which is intentional. It's not misinformation because it's not taking abortion away.
There's plenty of that. We'll talk about that in a second.
Right. It's not taking abortion away. It's taking it back to the states.
I want to stay on this issue of the leak, though, and play something from Harvard Law professor Alan Dershowitz, who was here on Newsmax last night. Take a listen.
This was not just an inadvertent leak. I think this was an act of civil disobedience engaged in by a determined law clerk. Chief Justice Roberts is just so upset, I can imagine, because he's lost control. People will think, at least, he's lost control of the court. And this leak, in all the years I've been following the Supreme Court, there's never been a leak like this.
Jenna, first to you and then to you, Amy. We only have a couple minutes left here, but I think Professor Dershowitz talked about it. It does appear like John Roberts has lost control of his court based on this, Jenna.
Well, I don't think that he's lost control of the court. I think it was intentional, and it was to create a pressure campaign, maybe not specifically to the justices to overrule their opinion, which Justice Roberts has clearly said this won't stop the court. But really, I think it was more directed toward Congress, and it was also directed toward the American people to say, we're not going to allow this to stand. It's so ridiculous that Democrats will invoke the Constitution and the rule of law when they think it plays for them, but they are so happy to disregard all norms and respect for institutions like the Supreme Court and processes when it's to their advantage. This is all about Democrats just want America the way they want it, and they don't care who they have to hurt and punish in the way. And so what nobody's saying about this is this isn't just an act of civil disobedience. This is an actual insurrection. We want to talk about January 6th. That's completely different. This is something that is actually trying on purpose to undermine the rule of law.
Yeah, that's in reference to this one guy who tweeted out, a Vox reporter, that, kudos to this leaker for willing to burn the whole Supreme Court down. But Amy, last word to you with a minute left.
Well, this is unfortunately intentional, like Jenna just relayed. And I think what it does is it also takes a lot of the heat off of the Democrats' other failures that have been surmounting. And so now this is another area where they can say Republicans are bad. They hate you. They're taking all of your rights away. When in fact, they're the ones who have done so much damage up until this point in so many other areas. And this is just another way to steer the attention away from all their other failures.